Hi guys, this is Daniel again, just back for another video. I just wanted to give a quick update on my Bitcoin launch signal that I talked about in my video a couple of days ago. If you watched the previous video, I talked about these launch signals. That is basically the main way that I trade. So I calculated these launch signals myself, and I've calculated the optimal time to exit the launch signal trade, and that's basically the only trading I do in Bitcoin. It's a long-term strategy, and so far it's highly effective. With those launch signals though, there are actually failed launch signals, which is what I want to talk about today. There's times where the price could have created the launch signal, but it just fails to do so. It ticks off a couple of the boxes of the launch signal, but not all of them. And that creates the failed signal here. As I talked about in my previous video, the launch signals, they don't come around that often. There was mid-2015, there was mid-2019, and kind of early 2020, and that's it. So for this whole 7-year period, there's only kind of 3 launch signals. And this is the one that I traded. I created these launch signals in kind of 2020, and this is the launch signal that I actually took. I traded this one, and I exited up here. What is also interesting is the failed launch signals. So you'll see in this same 7-year period, there's only 6 now failed launch signals. And the 6th one came today or yesterday. So there's only been 6 failed signals in this 7-year period. Bitcoin did have a chance to create a launch signal in the last day, but it failed to do so. So it ticked one of the boxes for the launch signal, but not the rest of the boxes. So it didn't create the full launch signal. So you'll see when it does create the launch signal, it is a great timer of the next major move. These 3 times here. But when it fails to create the launch signal, I'll just zoom in, I'll show you what the previous examples showed. So as you can see right now, as of today, we have a failed launch signal. So I'll just go back to the previous times this happened. There was 5 other times this happened. So you can see in 2018, it happened 3 times we got this failed signal. Failed to launch here, here, and here. You'll see each time it did actually go a little bit higher, but the moves failed. They failed every time. So I wouldn't call this a short signal. I wouldn't short Bitcoin based on a failed launch signal because as you can see, it goes a fair bit higher before it crashes. So it's not a great timer of a short. I do actually have a crash signal, which is a better timer for a short. I'll talk about that in a different video. But today we're just talking about the failed launch signals. So as you can see 3 times in 2018, I'll just go back to the other examples. We had 2 more failed launch signals here. So as you can see, price did go a bit higher from these failed launch signals, eventually failed. So if you had have bought at this time and just held until the next actual launch signal, which was here, your entry price would be around about the same. So it wouldn't actually make that much of a difference if you bought here and waited for the launch signal and then just held for the launch. But you would have had to deal with this move, which was quite painful. So basically the point of the launch signal that I created is to avoid these painful moves. It's basically just to get on board right when it's going to the moon. That's why I call it a launch signal, because it's just about to launch straight up. And then you don't have to deal with this sort of noise here, this sort of noise here. And right now, we've just got another failed launch signal. So what that tells me is basically we're not going straight to the moon here. We could go a little bit higher. We could go into 50,000, 55. It could even go crazy and get to 60,000. But any move here in this range will be a fake move, I believe. It won't be the real move. The real moves are this. That is a real move here. This is a real move. And of course, 2017 was a real move. So we aren't looking for like a 10, 20% move. We're looking for the big multiple 100% moves. That's what we're looking for on this channel. And that is not going to come from this position right here because we got the failed launch signal. So again, I'm expecting possibly it gets to 50,000, 55. Anywhere in this range is fair game. But I believe it will eventually fail and come back to this range into the 30,000s at some point. Now, just to recap, I created this launch signal myself by doing hundreds and hundreds of hours of research into Bitcoin, all the different factors that go into creating a move like this. So this launch signal, it's based on simple moving averages. It's based on a calculation of momentum that I created myself and a calculation of volatility that I created myself. And the launch signal is a combination of those three factors. It's basically a massive, complicated formula that I've got in an Excel spreadsheet that I use to calculate the failed signals and the proper launch signal here. So even though it's not good that we got a failed launch signal here, it's not actually that bad for the long term, because you'll see after the previous failed signals, price did go lower. It did go lower every time basically. But the next actual launch signal wasn't that far away from the failed signals. Over here, it was only a few months, maybe 4 months away until you got the actual launch signal. Over here, it took a little bit longer. This is closer to a year before you got the actual launch signal. But it's not that long of a wait. I don't think 1 year is that long in crypto. So that is the sort of good news, is that possibly a real launch signal might only be a few months away. So I'd expect it, somewhere in this range, kind of late 2022, we'll probably get the actual launch signal. So what that looks like in terms of price, I can't really tell, but I can give a rough guess. So my rough guess would be something like this. It goes a bit higher, and then basically we end back into this range. And then possibly we create a launch signal here, and then we go to the moon. We may go lower. I'm not really sure about that. We may kind of hold this kind of ascending trend line here. But yeah, it might end up something like this. So basically that's about it. I just wanted to give a quick update. So if anyone's getting too excited about crypto up here, I would say be very cautious. So for me, I think it's a far better strategy to just be out of the market this whole time here. For the previous whole year, basically you could just be out of the market. There's no point being in crypto in this time here. This is just noise. You don't need to be trading this. And this failed launch signal here is just more proof that you don't need to be in the market during this time here. Just wait until the launch signal comes. If you subscribe to this channel, I will keep you updated. I'll let you know when the launch signal comes. When it does come, I will be 100% in Bitcoin again. If you have any questions or comments for me, make sure to leave a comment down below and I'll reply back to you as soon as possible. And make sure to subscribe to the channel and I'll keep you updated on this launch signal.